In Philippians 3, 15 and 16 today, we'll consider 3 corporate strategies for Christian growth, you might call them. 3 corporate strategies for Christian growth that can guard and guide us in the Christian life together as we seek God to work in our lives. I'm going to outline 3, you might call them group commitments. Might even say they're a church growth principle that keep us focused on the right path together. And these simple verses guide us when we're tempted to think wrongly about ourselves or about others. And so I pray we'll be strengthened and protected by them as we consider them. Look at verse 15 again. There's only one hope, and His name is Jesus Christ. And we never stop glorying in Him. By keeping the focus on exalting Christ as the crucified Savior of sinners to provide the life of the Spirit to grow us by His Word. You know what else? It keeps us unified. It keeps us unified in the essential and central realities. Paul had warned of selfish ambition and empty glory. Remember in chapter 2, later he addressed disputes among members as he goes into chapter 4. And so here again, see, just as in chapter 2, he is calling for unity. It's like he was saying this, hey, remember? We're all in this together. We're all in this together. We're pressing toward Christ-likeness in an interconnected, interdependent body. We all look to Christ as our head. We're all under His Word. We're all striving toward Him. We're all grateful for grace in Him. We're together in this. And it's a race, and we're in the flow of it together. So stick together. You might note that as a first point of application, a first corporate strategy. You might say a first mutual commitment for spiritual growth. Let's stay together in the flow. That is, in the flow of life, in the flow of the race, of running the race together. Stay together in it. As we each individually commit to press on, to know and follow Jesus, to run the race, as we talked about last week. That's a second takeaway point of application, a reminder of the basics here. Point number 2, let's trust God to help us grow. The second half of verse 15 models an attitude, a mindset of trust in God. That God is the one who does the supernatural work of transformation through the means that He gave. We can apply that to ourselves as a corporate strategy, as a relational pursuit of growth. Personally, when you are discouraged, you're tempted to despair because you've done too much fruit metering, maybe, and you're focused on yourself. Or maybe you're discouraged with genuine doubts or failures. You need to return to the promises of God, that He promises to work through His Word, and then actively trust Him. Actively wait on Him. We don't wait on God. We don't trust God by sitting around doing nothing. We trust Him. We actively wait on Him by trusting what He said, by faith, being faithful to read His Word, to meditate upon it, to pray, to seek Him, to be zealously investing in church relationships and ministry. We trust Him not by being passive, but by doing what He said. We trust and follow Him. We let His Word dwell in us richly. We do not forsake the gathering with His people. We get ourselves under the ministry of sound doctrine. We labor to put to death the deeds of the flesh in our members. We yield ourselves as slaves to Christ for His work of righteousness in us. We flee sin. We fight the fight of faith. We practice the one another commands with other believers. All of that is trusting Him. All of that is included in actively trusting God to grow us. And so, as we consider living in community with one another as His people, let's stay together and let's trust God to help us grow. And thirdly, let's build on what we know. Let's build on what we know. The third takeaway today, look at verse 16 to see where I get that. However, let us keep living by the same standard to which we have attained. Okay, here's the great secret of the Christian life. Live by what you know. Only that's not a secret, right? I mean, that's obvious. Live by what you know. Yet that is so easily forgotten, as professing Christians are so often distracted and deceived and derailed by so many other things, especially in our culture where people want the latest strategy or tool or recipe for success or whatever else. But it's not a secret. It's basic. And verse 16 actually goes back to the first part of verse 15 with the focus on this mindset to be guarded in maturity. The mindset that rests in the gospel and all the realities that Paul testified to in verses 4 to 14 to form the fundamental standard to which Philippians had attained. Those basics are what stabilize believers and anchor us deeply in the foundation of settled stability and security and maturity. And so verses 15 and 16 remind us, stay together as we go. Trust God to help us grow and build on what we know. It all starts with and continually returns to the gospel of Jesus Christ.